do I look with my arms up here? Do I look silly or?
You're in a big chair.
Yeah. Before there were kings, before the internet, before Netflix marathons and ergonomic back support, there was the chair. It seems so simple. 4 legs, a seat, sometimes a backrest. But the chair is more than furniture. It is an invention that mirrors our evolution of societies and even our psychology. Over thousands of years, it has moved from the rare symbol of dominance to a mass-produced fixture of modern life. From golden thrones of kings to plastic stackables of school halls, chairs have shaped the way we live, work and rest. This is not just a story of an object. This is the story of how we sit and why it matters. Hi, I'm Justin Lowry from On the Square Emporium, and this is the history of the chair. Modern man emerged from Africa 300,000 years ago, and you can bet your bottom's comfort that very soon after, they opted for something more comfortable than sitting on the ground. Wooden carved stools 10 to 12 inches, like this one here, barely more than hollowed out logs, are still used by many of the tribes, and surely mirror what our first ancestors used to keep their posteriors off the cold terra firma. The first few thousand years of seat history are lost as any evidence has decomposed long ago. These rudimentary seats were more than conveniences. They represented a shift in how humans interacted with their environment. But why the change? Firstly, the ground was cold and wet and uncomfortable. And when you hit middle age in prehistoric times at around 25, you don't want to be sitting on the floor anymore. It also kept away the creepy crawlies from getting into your loincloth. Secondly, status. Even in early societies, elevation could signify importance. A raised seat, even something of this size, made it you distinguished individual, setting them apart from the gatherings or rituals. Thirdly, comfort. As tasks like tool making or food preparation became more intricate, a stable, elevated seat provided better posture and ease. These early seating solutions were not ornate. They were functional, crafted from stone or wood or sometimes woven. They marked the beginning of a journey from the ground to the throne. In lifting ourselves off the earth, we took a step towards civilized structure, and the complex social dynamics that would shape our world and our posterior took a giant leap towards comfort. The simple act of lifting the body off the ground would go to shape how civilizations view space, status, and order. Nowhere is this more evident than in the rise of Mesopotamia and Egypt, 2 of the earliest complex societies on Earth. In ancient Mesopotamia, archaeological evidence from sites such as Ur and Lagash show that furniture was already being crafted with cane as early as 2,500 years BCE. Reliefs and carvings depicted rulers sitting on elevated platforms, often on intricately carved stools or low-backed chairs. These were not utilitarian, they were ceremonial. To be raised above the ground was to be separated oneself from the dust and the dirt of the common people. Seating became a tool of the hierarchy. In temple complexes, priests were often portrayed seated, mediating between gods and the people. In royal courts, kings sat on thrones, with scribes and servants remained kneeling or standing by the chair. The chair was no longer just a place to rest. It was a visual reminder of who held control. In ancient Egypt, chairs were a symbol of wealth and spiritual power. The pharaoh sat high above his people, supported by furniture crafted from ebony, ivory, inlaid with gold and decorated with scenes of conquest. These were not meant to be relaxing. These were thrones, built to elevate their occupant both physically and socially. Ordinary Egyptians, even wealthy ones, sat on stools or mats. The chair belonged to royalty, priests, and the gods. Further east, similar patterns appeared. In ancient China, raised seating signifies intellectual or moral superiority. Confucian ideals supported the idea that posture reflected character, and furniture played a role in this. The raised platforms or chair was not just functional, it was a moral and political statement. The Greeks and Romans carried this forward. In Rome, the curule seat, a folding X-frame chair, was reserved for magistrates. To sit on one was a declaration of rank. In the Senate, chairs were symbols of a man's status, with elaborate ornamentation signifying wealth and influence. The Romans also brought on the evolution of comfort in a chair, with padding and cushions and upholstered. This culminated in the famous chaise longue that was popular to relax and slouch in while being fed grapes. Known in Rome as midday chairs, because after a bit of delegation in the morning and a bit of tablet work, you retired to the chaise from midday, much like you would retire to a couch on a Sunday afternoon. The average Roman citizen, however, continued to use stools and benches. Chairs, even then, still separated the elite from the everyday. Through the Middle Ages in Europe, chairs remained exclusive. Most people sat on the floor, on low benches, or on crude stools. Inside castles, monasteries, and manors, chairs existed, but only for the most important individuals. The term chairman has its roots here. At gatherings or councils, only the leader would be given a chair, while others stood or used stools. The presence of a chair alone indicated authority. Chairs during this period were often large and heavy, made of oak, carved with religious political symbols, and placed near a fireplace or at the head of a table. They were not designed to be moved. They were meant to anchor a person in space and establish them as a figure to be respected or obeyed. Even in religious settings, bishops were given cathedrae, ornate chairs that later gave rise to the word cathedral, meaning the church that contained a bishop's seat. For centuries, to sit on a chair was to occupy a position of leadership. As the Renaissance spread across Europe, the chair began to change. Furniture makers, especially in Italy and France, embraced style. The chair no longer only about power, it became a canvas for craftsmanship, intricate carvings, upholstered cushions, decorative legs, and arms that curled like scrolls. By the time of Louis XIV in the 17th century, the chair had become a symbol of French refinement. In Versailles, entire rooms were filled with chairs of different styles, each matching the fashion of the era. There were fauteuils, bergers, and duchesses brises. Each served a different social function. The more arms and the more padding, the more height and the more importance the person sitting in it. And yet, there were rules. In the presence of the king, only he was permitted a chair with arms. Nobles might be allowed armless chairs, visitors, at best, a small stool. Even when seated, society was meticulously stratified. Everything changed in the 18th and 19th centuries. The Industrial Revolution ushered a new era of mass production. What had once taken weeks for a craftsman to build could now be produced in hours by machines. Factories and workshops churned out chairs by the thousand. The iconic bentwood chairs from companies like Thornay and the stackable number 14 cafe chair appeared everywhere, from Persian bistros to the working-class kitchens. As people moved into cities, homes became smaller. Chairs had to be functional, space-saving, and affordable. Utility began to rival style. The Victorian era emphasized posture. Children were taught to sit up straight. Schools used hard wooden chairs with flat seats, rigid back. Slouching was seen as a moral failing, and the chair became a disciplinary tool. Meanwhile, offices emerged. Clerks, typists, and accountants needed furniture. First office chairs appeared, often with wheels and rotating seats designed to increase productivity. They also began to shape how long people sat and how their bodies felt. In the 20th century, the chair became an object of design obsession. Modernists pushed back against the ornate styles of the past. Designers sought function, simplicity, and honesty in materials. But perhaps no designers shaped the modern chair more than Charles Ray Eames. Their lounge chair and ottoman, released in 1956, combined moulded plywood with leather in a way that felt both luxurious and modern. Meanwhile, new materials entered the scene. Plastic allowed for cheaper, more comfortable designs. The 1960s and 70s gave us stackable school chairs, blow-moulded patio seats, and space-age pod chairs. Seating became playful, accessible, and experimental. For the first time, the chair was not just about where you sat, but who you were. In the late 20th century, the chair became a workplace staple. The rise of office brought a new problem: prolonged sitting. For centuries, sitting had been brief, occasional, or ceremonial. Now it was daily and often lasted 8 hours or more. Ergonomics became the focus. Companies developed chairs with lumbar supports, adjustable arms, reclining backs, breathable mesh. The goal was not luxury, it was endurance. Chairs like the Herman Miller's Aeron became a status symbol in tech finance, not because they looked fancy, but because they were engineered for performance. As our chairs got more advanced, our bodies began to suffer. Sedentary lifestyle led to back pain, muscle loss, poor circulation and fatigue. The chair, once a symbol of progress, had quietly become a health risk. And yet, we keep sitting. As screens took over our lives, the chair adapted again. We no longer just worked at desks. We gamed, streamed, and scrolled. We created entire lifestyles around screens. The chair evolved to match. Gaming chairs exploded in popularity, heavily padded, often styled like racing seats. They featured high backs, adjustable arms, some built-in speakers or LED lights. They looked aggressive, futuristic. Designed not for comfort alone, but for identity. The chair has become our constant companion and also our silent captor. So what comes next? Some designers envisage a future where fewer chairs, standing desks, walking meetings, and active workspace challenge the idea of sitting as the default. Others are reimagining the chair itself, using new materials, shapes, and biomechanics to create healthier options. Still, the deeper challenge is not how we sit, but why. We built a world where sitting is required. We sit in schools, in cars, at work, during meals, and in front of screens. The chair has become the foundation of our daily life. But it wasn't always this way, and it doesn't have to stay this way. The chair began as a symbol of power. It became a tool of comfort, then a weapon of convenience, and now it is something we must question. We designed it, we refined it, we worshipped it, and maybe now it's time to stand back up.